This way. Is that Prince for King? What's today's mathematics?
Truth is universal. Truth cannot be invented.
Then it was guaranteed that Marcus Garvey would come the next night. And the hall was packed with people. And everybody went with ammunition.
How they understand themselves as African, right, and American.
Yes.
Like, it's not either or, right?
Everybody who knows anything about Israel knows that in order to effectuate significant change, you not only need a majority, you need a Jewish majority.
America awards her killers, and they get ribbons and stripes and bars.
A U.S. State Department sponsored program and set of musical tours called the Jazz Ambassadors.
Talks about the work of Marcus Garvey and the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as being demonstrative of, and he basically called them total nationalists.
But the reality is that African people are not vicious, violent people.
He's not teaching hate, he's teaching history.
Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of Wise the Dome TV. Today I have a very, very special guest. He is the host of Hotep History on YouTube, a very dope channel where they do deep dives and builds and on African American history. Man, it's and some of the topics that he chooses are really, really dope. And so I definitely suggest everybody to hit that link in the description. But President Hotep Dubes is the guest. I appreciate you for coming on, G.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me, man. Long time coming at this point. I'm super happy to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, likewise, man. And so for one, congratulations, on the success of the channel and everything that's going on. And I just wanted to kind of know what sparked you to even create the channel. What inspired you?
So when it comes down to Hotep History, I'm offended. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I grew up learning about our history through K through 12 and the way public school told our stories and stuff like that. And it's very demoralizing. It's very you read these stories, you hear these stories in school, and it's centered around oppression, it's centered around racism, it's centered around discrimination and all of these different things. And then you internalize those stories, and you internalize those stories in a way to where it's like, well, black equals downtrodden, second-class citizen. It's synonymous with being less than, inferior. And as I was getting older, there was a moment. I was in my early 20s. I was going to say like 21, 22. And I learned about the story of Tulsa, right? Everybody knows about Tulsa. However, the way it was told to me in school was basically that a roving band of racist white people burned down this town in Oklahoma, and that was it. That was the center of it. And that happened in 1921, May 30th to June 1st, right? They don't tell you about O.W. Gurley, who founded Black Wall Street in 1905. They don't tell you that there was almost 20 years of history before the riot or before the massacre, however you want to conceptualize it. And then not only that, they don't tell you that by 1925 it was completely restored by those same residents. And so it just clicked to me like, oh, their history is about narrative and framing. Yes. It's how you tell the story. And when you look at, just being honest, that, what they call the dominant society or mainstream history, you're going to hear about Aristotle. You're going to hear about Socrates. You're going to hear about Thomas Edison. You're going to hear about Napoleon. You're going to hear about all of these great white people in history. And it's all illustrious. It's something to be proud of and stuff like that. But when it comes down to our stories, it's always centered around the behaviors, thoughts, and the allowance or disallowance of white people for Black American activity, Black American life. And I didn't appreciate that, because in this day and age now, the way in the 21st century, we understand that the majority of the country is white, that the politicians are predominantly white. All these things are still true, right, for us, but we have autonomy. We have agency, we have stories, we have discographies of music, filmography of film. We have all of these different, nuanced parts of our history. And we wouldn't dare in the 21st century say that, oh, everything that we do is because of Biden or because of Trump or because of this white person or that. No. And I understand the different contexts of time. But when I started to read primary sources from our ancestors directly, it was affirmed to me that, oh, they're just taking away our autonomy. They're taking away our agency via mainstream K through 12 public school Black American history. So for me, I thought I looked at it as a duty, as an obligation to myself, my community, and everybody else who's been taught Black American history this way to pretty much set the record straight. A lot of people look at revisionist history as a component that's ahistorical, but revisionism is a part of history. Okay, that's not a antithetical to history.
Yeah.
Being able to revision something is absolutely imperative, especially when, for the most part, our stories have been told by people who are not Black American. And so I'm reclaiming our ancestors' narratives. I'm reclaiming the framing. I'm reclaiming it. And when you read these books, I'm telling you, Wise, you read the preface of, I'll give you an example, the Negro history. The Negro history, the industrial history of the Negro in the United States by Giles B. Jackson. In the preface of the book, he says, we're writing this book for future generations of Black babies to be able to be inspired by their history. And when you look at all of the different prefaces, that's one of the key points. Look at the prefaces of these books written by the ancestors, and they'll tell you exactly why they wrote this book. There's a great book called The College of Life that was written by the ancestors, a consortium of the ancestors. You have another book by, what's her name? Is it Rosetta Dunnigan, I want to say. She has a book called How to Be Successful. All of these ancestors are writing these books for the sole purpose to inspire, educate, and motivate the Black babies coming up under them. And these books are written in 1890, 1910. And so I've noticed that once I started getting into these things, as far as the ancestors, they spoke so highly of the time that they lived in despite Black codes, despite Jim Crow, despite the lynchings, despite all of that, because we go through hell today. Black Americans are still going through hell, but we're still able to achieve. And I was offended. Like I said, they took away so much of our glory and replaced it with gore. And so I'm just restoring that glory for Black American history.
Indeed. You mentioned the battle for narrative, right? And we know that's something that is real. And America, especially being masters of propaganda, masters of controlling the narrative or directing the narrative to their benefit. But when we talk about history, our history, and the battle for narrative, can you talk about why that is important, why we must see things through the eyes of our ancestors instead of, the mainstream discourse that we have been given from the time we were children in grade school?
Absolutely. It's an incredible question. Thank you, because that's one of the main reasons why Hotep History is here. And so when you are told, especially from somebody who doesn't look like you, it happens with people. 80% of our teachers in public school are white females, right? And so you're being told these narratives about your ancestors, right? Whether it be bondage, Black codes, Jim Crow, or any of these other things, they're approaching it from a place where this is inherent based upon your skin color. This is innately you. You are innately second-class citizen. And if it wasn't for the abolitionists, women like me or white people like me, who was your so-called ally, you would still be in bondage, right? And so those types of levels of paternalism that they put onto Black American babies in there, they're internalizing it again and walking out of that classroom demoralized and thinking that, well, if racism exists, and the only way I'm going to be able to succeed is through your benevolence. If I don't get that benevolence from you, I'm sure to be a failure.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the self-reliance and self-sufficiency or all of the, education and all of the, determination and perseverance that the ancestors during that time actually told us was going to get us to the next level. No, my white teacher, my white doctor, my white this has to see something in me in order for me to be able to get to the next level. And when you compound that I would say this lesson started to be taking shape around the late 60s going into the 70s. So since then, right, millions of black babies have been told you're a slave, you're a second-class citizen, you're all of these things. And if it wasn't for these white people that you consider allies, then you wouldn't be anything other than that. When you frame Black American activity, particularly economically, socially, and politically, you are now basically saying that you're just the whipping boy or the poster child for whatever grievance that's happening right now in the country. And Black Americans have their own issues. And so now, because of that framing and because of that narrative, people are not looking into the economics. They're not looking into, the way that we have mutual aid societies and we're able to build entire towns fresh off the plantation. Even during slavery, there were black towns. We had black towns as early as 1526 in St. Augustine. And so what you take away all of that and just reduce us to, oppression and all these other things. And so now you're walking around demoralized just innately because you are black. While everybody else gets to have all of their heroes and all of these different people, our heroes are based in politics. You don't have any heroes in business. I do. I got Samuel B. Fuller. I got A.G. Gadsden. I got Booker T. Washington. I have all these different people that I could just, from the top of my head. But we have, and I'm not disparaging those ancestors, your Rosa Parks, your Martin Luther Kings, and because it's all centered around the benevolence of white people. Because now all of those white allies that marched with Martin Luther King or took photos of Rosa Parks or, were considered these political allies to these people. Now they get to pat themselves on the back for being non-racist while all of our stories are being erased. And it's all centering white people.
Right, indeed. And so you mentioned earlier about, us telling our stories and the ancestors, and the books they wrote and their works that are still here, that still live on. We're kind of in a time right now where it seems like there's a anti-intellectualism that's being pushed on our people, or not just on our people. It seems to be all over the country, right? Like all demographics, right? Like, but can you talk about the importance of study, the importance of reading, the importance of actually taking this seriously, not just as a fun little hobby, but the actual importance of it and what it can do for the person who is actually doing that study.
Absolutely. It is going to be a little bit of a bias here, but I will say that history is quite literally top 2 and not 2 as far as subjects. Because everything has history. Your science subject has history in it. The tree that's outside your house right now, the light post, the street, the concrete on your sidewalk right now, it's all history. Somebody had to pour it, somebody had to grow it. There's always history. So that's one thing. And when it comes down to the way we are approaching this, a lot of people are looking at it like, okay, and it's the anti-intellectualism that's going on in the community. I have a controversial take. I believe the intellectuals actually threw the first blow or lobbied the first blow. And the reason why I say that is during the time of the late 19th century, going into the early 20th century, you had that long battle between the Booker T. Washingtons and the W.E.B. Du Bois, right? And so it's like vocation, trade, industrial works versus being an intellectual, book smart, moving up in the upper echelons in that way. And there was always this tug of war as far as Black America and what direction we should go into. When it came down to a lot of our intellectuals during that time, they had, I would say they had good intentions. I will say that. But the methods and techniques that they were implementing at the time was taking away from the vocational and taking away from the industrial work. It was looked as menial. Instead of manual, it was menial. We shouldn't have to till the soil anymore. We shouldn't have to do all these things anymore because we wear suits now. We're in Boston and we're in New York and we're up north and we're making all these moves. We're going to Harvard now and all these things. And that's great. but we should not have to forsake those things, because you can't have civilization without agriculture. In any part of the world, if you don't have a farming system to be able to sustain the lives around you, you're going to die. So all you smart people that's in Harvard and Cambridge, or all of the black schools and all that stuff, you still had to eat lunch.
Yeah.
you still, and as a matter of fact, you had to build the building for you to even learn inside of it. And so for me, I appreciate the intellectuals for wanting to pursue something better, but there is an issue where you're thinking, like, because we're pursuing something better, we should just leave that work to somebody else. And sorry, that's not how farming works. Somebody has to be out there year round tilling that soil. And so the George Washington Carvers, the Booker T. Washingtons, and all these guys that were pushing, this type of message, they were looked at as antiquated. Sometimes you would even have people say that, they were anti-black, or what they would call like coons or whatever stuff, because that's the old days. Booker T. Washington, in his book Working with the Hands, he was a kid, right, when slavery was abolished, but he was born a slave, so he did some, he was a slave. And when slavery was abolished, he said the little boys around him thought that because the abolition of slavery happened meant that was the abolition of working altogether. And it's like, no, you were worked. There's a difference between being worked and having to work. He was like, we were worked as slaves, but now we still have to work. And so a lot of people were approaching these types of fields, like these manual labors like that. And then now you fast forward to 2026, the trades are still some of the top jobs that you can get fresh out of high school. We still need to eat. We still need to eat, right? And so there are all of these different things that are still, tried and true, battle tested as far as the ideologies or the teachings of a Booker T. Washington that you see now. We have a lot of useless degrees, Wise. Like I'm saying, I know I keep calling you Wise, but I'm thinking about the
good.
So we have a lot of useless degrees. I'm just going to be honest, right? And so right now in America, only 6% of Black Americans are in the trades, despite the fact that it quite literally builds everything that we know. And so that wasn't the case in the past. As a matter of fact, Black Americans had monopolies in a lot of these different things, where white people wouldn't even hire other white people. It's one of the reasons why the KKK was even formed, because they had to intimidate not only the Black people, right, but the white people that were hiring them. There's a story of Emperor Williams. Emperor Williams was a slave. His slave owner was a builder, carpenter. There was a cornice, the awnings that they have on those buildings that nobody could build. Emperor said, what? I could build that, no problem, no sweat. He was like, yo, listen, I forgot his name, McIntosh. His slave owner's name was McIntosh. I think it's James McIntosh or something like that. McIntosh said, hey, listen, if you can build this cornice, or corniche, I don't know how to pronounce it, you get your freedom. That's how he earned his freedom, right? Being able to do something that even the other white guys weren't able to do. And so when you're learning these types of stories, right, you get a level of like, oh, I can do it too. If this former slave can do this, if this current slave can do it, like we have the ability to do it. So going back to the intellectualism part of it, what happened was the intellectuals started to buy into integration being elevation. Instead of being self-sufficient, instead of still, carrying those principles that their ancestors and their grandparents were pushing, right, from the early 19th century, right? They were like, well, we in Harvard now, baby. We in school now. We learning through the books, and that's cool. That's great. I learned through books. I'm a part of the intellectual class, right? But that doesn't stop. Like, the need for vocation doesn't stop.
Yeah,
it doesn't. And so that's why I feel like the anti-intellectualism, it really is kind of like the chickens coming home to roost, to where it's like you kind of left us out to dry. Right. Politically, you wanted us to, push for integration. Intellectually, you wanted us to abandon the vocational work. Socially, you wanted to, look down upon the rural South where Black Americans were predominantly. I mean, in 1900. 90%, I think even up until 1920, well, the Great Migration that happened in 1910. So in 1900, right, 90% of Black Americans lived down South, 9 out of 10. And so now that's what that coincides, funny enough, with the talented 10th. We're going to be the 10%. We're going to be the ones who are going to be the conduit in between Black America and the dominant society. We've made it. We're the intellectuals. We're going to speak on all of our behalf. And what you saw, which is still the thing today, is that Black Americans are not a monolith. And so you had a bunch of black people who took pride in the vocational work. They took pride in the industrial work. But now you have people, like W.E.B. Du Bois and them saying, or William Monroe Trotter, it's a bunch of intellectuals being like, hey, man, that's the way of the past. We moving on. And then in the 1920s, we have the New Negro movement, where they explicitly said, we're not. Yep. You know how you've heard these cornballs say, we're not our ancestors?
Yeah.
That's what they...
Well, I hate that, but yeah.
Oh, my goodness, I hate that. But in the 1920s, there was this thing called the New Negro movement.
Yeah,
and that's essentially essentially what the energy was. It's like, we not those old farmers that you used to. We not them sharecroppers that you used to. We in Harlem now. We in Chicago. We in Detroit. We in, and so all of these different things. So now they moving and shaking. I will say that today it's been bastardized, because even back then it was kind of putting the old heads in that spot, but still being like, we still need to buy black, we still need to build black, we still need to do all of these things. We're just going to do it with a more of an up north, or more of a current flair. But so that's how I look at the anti-intellectual debate at this point.
Understood. And a lot of times people don't also realize that when Du Bois began to, get older, he began to understand that what was needed was what Booker T. Washington taught with the vocational trades, and also what he was on as far as being people of ideas, people understanding the world. Like we needed both, right? It was never one or the other. And I think that's a very important context for people to understand as well. You have some very, very interesting topics. Like one was Black 49ers, one was barbering. How do you come up with the topics that you do these deep dives on?
So honestly, it's a lot of people have it messed up when it comes down to like looking at history. So they go too extreme, right? When it comes down to applying their own modern day 21st century sensibilities onto it. But it's true, but they go a little bit too far. We're not, you're not going to really see any, makings of like a Black Lives Matter or anything like that, to where those politics are not going to really be shown. But we do have, varying opinions and jobs and occupations and, all these different things. We're titans of industry. And so I wake up like literally random, Raheem. I just like, I wonder what the black barbers was doing back in 1890. Like, I wonder what the farmers was doing. I wonder, what this was like. And so I just, I get online. I stopped using Google, because Google, I learned recently, and it's just shown itself in user experience, that Google has made more money by becoming a worse search engine, so you can keep using it. So I just...
Oh, really? And it's like the first 5 things are just ads.
It's ridiculous. So that's the whole point. So they give you a terrible search result so you can type it in again, be a little bit more specific, so they can keep shoving ads down your throat. So what I use now is like different AI models. I use Claude mostly for my research, Claude and Perplexity. And I'll put primary sources, because I only primarily look at primary sources. If I'm going to learn about 1880, I'm going to read a book by a Black American from 1880 instead of having somebody in 1992 try to tell me what was happening. I'll just read the primary source. So I'll look up primary sources. And so primary source on black barbers in the 19th century, boom. And then I'll get titles and stuff like that. And I'll read. It's just me reading. So in 2025, I've read about 450 books.
Wow.
Not cover to cover, but because that's pretty much that's my job, right? So and so that's just what I do. I just collect. I collect books. Even sometimes there'll be like a few out of those 450. I probably didn't read about 15 of them, but it's like it'll be something like how to raise chickens or something like that. Like I'm in the city right now. But there is so many different topics. So it's like, I really, one day I woke up and was like, I wonder how the ancestors, took care of their chickens, or what, what it is. And it's just curiosity. I look into those types of things. And we had a recent episode about nurses and midwives.
Yes.
And we learned about Black American women. There was this woman, she wrote a book called Mother Wit, or Mother Twit, or something like that. And she was delivered by her grandmother. So we have 3 generations of midwives. Her grandmother was one, her mother was one, and then she was one. And so like these are the stories that I know are not getting told.
Yeah.
James Steele, he has a spicy quote. He wrote this in 1877. Slavery was barely abolished, and he said, "Yo, black people are responsible for the current situation." Like he became a doctor and all this other stuff. So of course, if I can do it, nobody. We're all former slaves. Nobody else. You know, we got some free black Americans. I think it was about anywhere between 500,000 to 1,000,000 people who were free during like 1860 at the height of slavery, right? So anywhere between 500,000 to 1,000,000. And he was saying like, yo, in 1877, yo, we are responsible for ourselves, and we have to be able to, you know, grab life by the horns and pretty much direct our own destiny. We can't allow anybody else to do it for us. And he said that in 1877. Again, Rosetta Dunnigan with How to Be Successful. And that was another thing. I implore everybody to look into the self-improvement books of the ancestors, because it's very poignant. These people are going through black codes where it's illegal for you to own property. It's illegal for you to have a firearm. It's illegal in some other spots to read and write. And these people are saying, yo, despite all of that, be great. And so that's more motivating to me than some multi-millionaire motivational speakers getting $50,000 to come out of school. Nah, I want to. These are people that are former sharecroppers, former slaves who are telling you, this is how I got it out the mud. And so that's the reason why I appreciate it. But yeah, I just wake up one day and I have the ancestors in mind all of the time.
When on the barbering episode, or whenever you were doing the research on just some of the history of barbering, African American men and women, like what did you find? What are some of the things that you found in that?
I found that Black Americans pretty much had a monopoly in all service industries, whether it be barbering, domestic work, obviously, trades, carpentry, all these different things. And barbering, you know how they jumped down Trump's throat when he said something about like black jobs like a year ago or something like that. Those were black jobs. Being a carpenter, being a barber was a black job. These are things that people just didn't want to do. And one of the things that I've noticed was that you know how they talk about immigrants today? That's how they talked about the ancestors back then. Like, oh, who else is going to cut hair? We don't want to cut hair. Like white men didn't find, you seen like in maybe the 30s, 40s, and 50s where you had the white barbershops with the spinning, all of that stuff. That wasn't a thing when the ancestors was moving around in the late 19th century, early 20th century. And so when it comes down to that, it was just a monopoly. Like everybody got their hair cut from black men. And one of the stories that we learned that night was because of economics. And this is the stuff that I like to get into, like the nuances and stuff. So there was this barbershop. I don't know if it was up north or down south. I don't remember. And he, he had a predominantly white or exclusively white clientele. Black guy comes in looking for a haircut. And now this black barber is at an economic crossroads. Because these white men are going to leave. If I serve him, all my other white customers are going to leave. But if I don't serve him, he's going to look at me like, what's going on? Yeah. And so those are going to be the conundrums that I appreciate and stuff like that. And then I can, also ask people about it on the stream. But the major thing that I learned that this was something that was inherently a black job. Nobody wanted to cut their own hair. Nobody wanted to cut somebody else's hair. Anything when it comes down to service, period. Nobody wanted to sweep. Nobody wanted to do anything to do with labor. That's what we have these people for, right? And so because of that, we have an entire generation of unskilled white men and women. And so Black Americans were able to use that to their economic advantage in all different sectors of business, but specifically for barbering, the monopoly, our ability to use that as a stepping stone and to get into other places of prominence. A perfect example was Philip A. Payton Jr. They call him the father of Harlem, right? His father was a barber. Philip Sr., right? Philip Jr. was a barber by 15. Wow. They come up in Massachusetts, right? And he's like, Mom, Dad, I want to go to New York. And they're like, no, don't go to New York. You don't need to go to New York. Just stay here. Just cut hair. You already got a trade. It's fine. You good. Because they were born free. He wasn't even a slave. And so against his parents' wishes, he moves to Harlem and stuff like that. And, long story short, he went through hell and high water in the real estate game. And after, his his pet died. That's how starving they were. His dog or his cat died in a freezing cold home in Harlem. And his wife was sewing and stuff like that to put, make ends meet while he was still looking for real estate deals. He hits one sweet real estate deal, and then from there was on like gangbusters, right?
Yeah.
And then from that, him setting up that real estate in that economic environment was attracting Black Americans to Harlem, which then obviously precipitates the Harlem Renaissance. So without Philip A. Payton Jr., a barber, coming to Harlem and getting into real estate, who knows if the Harlem Renaissance would have happened the way it did at the very least. And so it's stuff like that where we're using these trades. We're going to keep the trades. His father was a barber until he died, right? And when he was broke in Harlem, that's how he would be able to get some quick cash. Like, let me go run to this barbershop real quick, get a couple clients, cut some hair, and I can get back to it. And so that's like, I'm pretty sure the men in your life was like, yo, get a trade. No matter what, you'll be able to have it in your back pocket. You can fall back on it. That's ancestral. That comes from the ancestors directly because we were the predominance of the trades. And so, man, another example about a monopoly in the North, in New York and Philly. Again, having one of the things that is strategic that the ancestors did, because there wasn't that many free Black Americans, at the time, they set their businesses up in not only white areas, but rich white areas. So Thomas Downing, and I'm going to be doing these name drops for a reason, y'all. I want
everybody to, look these people up and do the knowledge, because this is how we keep their legacies alive, by talking about them, by remembering them.
Absolutely. And I get hyped talking about this. I could talk about this for days. Man. So exactly. So Thomas Downing, aka the Oyster King, he in New York, he placed his oyster restaurant, a seafood restaurant, right off of Wall Street, where all of the traders are coming. And so everybody know Black men and women make the best food. So that wasn't even an issue to get people indoors. But now that we're here and we're off of Wall Street, I'm charging y'all a premium, just like any other place. If you go to a restaurant in Beverly Hills or wherever the rich people are, you're going to pay more per plate. This is what it is. So he was able to charge a premium to this exclusively white clientele, but the basement of the restaurant was a stop on the Underground Railroad.
Wow.
He took his profits and invested in Black businesses down south and other Black movements, political movements and stuff like that, because that's what it was all about. So it may look like I'm just to the pessimist or the cynic. Oh, he just shucking and jiving for white people. Nah, G, I'm getting bread. Like I'm building up this clientele, because if I would have put this in a Black neighborhood, I would have to, first of all, seafood. So you already know the price of that stuff, right? Even back then. And then also I have to be conscious of our economic status. So I can't charge you, adjusted for inflation, $50 a plate. But these guys on Wall Street, you crazy? And I'm charging them $50 and I require a tip. What you mean? And you'll see that. And so Thomas Downing, along with other restaurateurs at the time, had monopolies up north where people were going out of their way. Another story that I love to tell is the invention of the hush puppy. And that's another thing we'll get into, hopefully, is debunking a lot of the lies told about the ancestors too, because I hate that. So the invention of the hush puppy, I'm pretty sure you've seen on Facebook where it's like slaves would drop fried cornmeal to try to quiet the dogs, which made it called hush puppies. Which is
like those crazy memes.
So illogical. I don't even have to tell you how illogical it is, giving dogs a breadcrumb to, like, it's quite literally you're giving them a trail to follow you. But anyway, the actual true origins of the hush puppy is by a man by the name of Romeo Govan from South Carolina. He threw legendary fish fries. Now you've been to, I'm pretty sure, dozens, if not hundreds of fish fries. Imagine your fish fry is known not only in your state, but nationally. People are traveling to come to your fish fries. Okay, this is Romeo Govan. Romeo Govan, while people were waiting for the fish to be finished, to get finished frying, he fried cornmeal. And that was like the appetizer, or like, the treat that you would have before, you wait for the fish. And so politicians, journalists, abolitionists, everybody used to come and eat his, at his fish fries. And so he created this fried cornmeal and he called it dark horse bread. And so that's what it was originally called. I still don't know why, but I'm telling you, newspapers from New York to Nevada was like, oh my goodness, Romeo Govan His fish
That's
fries are so
crazy.
crazy. If you come to South Carolina, you gotta go to Romeo
Wow.
Goban, and he set up a fish fry, like a venue right off the river too, so you can sit, have your feet in the water, eat your fish, and all
Yeah.
that, gets your feel. And so yeah, like that's the real history of hush puppies, which is a
Wow.
much better story than
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. And so
Right.
there's things like that to where it's like once you start reading these stories over and not even over and over again, but you start just reading these different narratives, black men and women just killing it. A black woman ended slavery in Massachusetts. A black woman ended slavery in Massachusetts, Elizabeth Mumbet. So she's a slave, and she's right at this point they're writing the Constitution. The men that she serves are writing the Constitution for Massachusetts. And this is like in 17 something or 18 something. I forget. It's either 18th or 19th century. I know that for sure.
Okay.
So she can't read or write, but she can hear.
Yeah.
And so they saying words like liberty, independence, freedom, and all this other stuff. She's serving the food and like independence, freedom.
Right.
So she goes to a lawyer that was in the room, and she was like, "Yo, listen, like I want some of that. What was all those words I was using?" So she successfully sued for her freedom, got reparations, and then she now becomes case law. Wow. So now all these other black people was like, well, hell, I'm suing too. I want to sue for my freedom too. And so Massachusetts was like, all right, well, no more slavery. Like we just going to just dub it. A black woman ended slavery in Massachusetts. That's a fact. A black man saved Massachusetts in the 18th century, early 18th century, 1721. A slave by the name of Onesimus. Onesimus from Africa. He introduced inoculation to the white population in Boston. So before he comes, they're like doing everything that they can to try to get rid of smallpox, or try to get a handle on smallpox. People are dying left and right. His owner, Cotton Mathers, asked Onesimus, "Hey, yo, you ever had smallpox?" And he was like, "Yes and no." He was like, "What? What are you talking about? Yes and no?" He was like, "Yeah, back home we had it, but we introduced it, figured it out, and now we don't have it anymore." He was like, "Say word." So Cotton is going around trying to tell him, like, "Yo, dog, I got the solution." And they like, "Man, from who?" They was like, "Yo, my slave Onesimus, he's telling me." He was like, "Man, I'm not trying to hear nothing from no, you already know. Nobody's trying to hear nothing from that N-word." Like, and so he was like, "All right, man, whatever." So Cotton gets it, and you know what I'm saying? And now people are like, "Wait, you got it?" So now they spread the word around, and now Boston has been saved in 1721 by a black man by the name of Onesimus.
Absolutely. That's powerful history. And one thing I appreciate about you and your channel is how you bring these stories back to life, and you tell them in a way that is not just informative, but it's inspiring as well. You know what I mean? Because these are our ancestors, and we have to continue to tell their stories. We can't ever let them die. And like one thing that I wanted to ask you about, whenever you did your deep dive on the Negro Leagues, we know like the history and of Rube Foster and all of these different pioneers within Black baseball. Like, what are some of the things that you found that you might not have known before that you felt were pretty interesting?
One, that there were more than one league, that there was more than one league, and that the league started in the late 19th century. I thought it was all in 20th century, like the 1900s. Right. And so that was the two things that really blew me back. Then the World Series, there's this photo of them all in the World Series that I want to blow it up and put it on my wall. I really love that photo. And when it came down to ownership, a lot of the team owners were pillars in their community, and they used the baseball teams as pretty much like advertising for their businesses and being able to like reinvest those monies, the ticket sales and stuff like that, back into the community. There was also like this like rivalry, camaraderie thing with Cubans as well during this time. It was like, yo, listen, Cubans can really play ball. Yeah, Negroes can really play ball. And so they had even certain like integrated. They had black and white men on the team.
And they would often go down to Havana and play ball in the winter.
Exactly. And so I didn't know about that Cuban connection that we had. I'm talking about late 19th century, you know?
Yeah.
And so and for me, I appreciated the consistency. That's one thing I love about the ancestors, that they don't ever let things get them down. Like, yeah, all right, we couldn't afford to keep that team, but you know what? We're gonna come right back. We're gonna open up another team. And so we went through the whole timeline where it's like, okay, this team started in 1911, ended in 1915, but it picked right back up 1916, the year after, and pushed it through. And so the perseverance is what I appreciated. And I like going underground. You know, a lot of people, like I said, when it comes down to mainstream, I look at history like pop music. Like mainstream, I look at it like pop music, but then what I do is like MF Doom. It's like currency.
Already.
It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like
underground.
Yeah. And so for me, it's like that's how I look at it. So yeah, we didn't. I don't even think I even brought Jackie Robinson up on that whole episode because we know about Jackie.
I know I watched most of it. I don't think you did either.
Exactly. So it's like it's no disrespect to Jackie. Like, and even
that's
with
literally
all of
the end of the Negro Leagues.
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like for me, yo, shout out to Martin, Rose, Frederick, like all of the names that we know already. But I want to hip y'all to, like you said, Rube. You feel me? I want to hip y'all to, you know, like I said, Samuel B. Fuller. Like I'm going to hit y'all. I want to hip y'all to people. What's my man name? Bond. What's his name? Last name Bond. He wrote a book called From Slavery to Wealth. He literally tells his story. His autobiography is called From Slavery to Wealth, where he starts off, you know, talking about being in bondage, and now he's, you know, a successful entrepreneur. You know, my friends make fun of me when I talk about Junius G. Groves, the Potato King, where he starts off with 9 acres. So Junius G. Groves is one of Booker T. Washington's good friends. He was called the Potato King because at the height of his reign, he controlled potato all throughout North America. So that's Canada, the United States, and Mexico, right? And so he started off with 9 acres of sharecropping land, him and his wife, 3 acres of white potato, 3 acres of red potato, and 3 acres of watermelon. They turned that 9 acres into an empire. Right. And one of the things that I love about that story, because it encapsulates so much about how to get wealthy and how to be successful in this country. One thing that they did, is that they invested all of their profit. They didn't buy anything new. The only thing that his wife, because he was married, the only thing that she asked for was a calico dress to dress out and to switch out in after they left the field. Because I don't want to be in my dirty. Yeah.
Booker T. Washington's man, right?
Yeah, so exactly. His name is Junius G. Groves. Okay. A lot of these guys that you'll be able to read from in the Negro in Business by Booker T. Washington, not W.E.B. Du Bois's book, because I know they have the same title, but Booker T. Washington's book, The Negro in Business, you'll be able to read about hoteliers, agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, and all different things. And Junius G. Groves' story is in this. Booker T. Washington interviewed these people via mail. So it's like I would send you a letter in the mail with questions, and you would mail it back with the answers, and I would put it in the book. Nice. Or I would go visit you. And so Junius G. Groves, they start out with the 9 acres. The sharecropper, first of all, he works out a great sharecropper deal. I liken it to Master P's record deal. So for everybody out there, sharecropper deals, the average sharecropper deal was essentially your 360 deal. It was debt based. And so you were able to get fronted tools, land, seed, even some oxen or livestock in helping hands, like farm hands. And then you would pay it back.
Pay that shit back.
Exactly. So you would have to pay it back with the yield from your crops. But it's debt based. And one of the things that they did is that they would give these loans, some of the most predatory loans that you would ever see. You know, right now, the worst credit card, you have the lowest credit score. The highest interest rate that you're going to get is about 24.99, 25%. So for every dollar you spend on that credit card, you got to pay back $1.25. The ancestors were dealing with 50 to 100% interest. So for every $1 they borrowed, they had to pay back 2. So like you said, it was almost impossible to get out of that debt. Junius worked out a better deal with the landlord or the landowner and said, like, yo, listen, no interest, and then I want to be able to retain way more of my crop and pocket it, but I will make sure I pay you back. And so they worked that deal out. he kills it with the 9 acres. I mean, absolutely kills it. So the landowner's like, he's like a connect. Like, you did that with 9. Let me see what you could do with 21. So he gave him 11 more acres. And then with the 21 acres, he G'd that up, bought a cow. Because again, he didn't buy new shoes, new clothes, no nothing. He just kept reinvesting in the business. And so he kept his head down, and before you know it, he's buying 80 acres over here, 100 acres over here, and then he has enough money to buy his own acreage. It's not just, expanding whatever the landlord gave him. Now, me and my wife, we're buying our own land. And one of the things I appreciated about it, because there's so many different principles. So you have the reinvesting in your business, getting married and staying married, right? And so they're working together. They're in the field together. And she worked until she didn't have to. Because they got rich eventually. He was potato king. You ain't got to work now. You the potato queen. You ain't got to go out there no more. You know what I mean? But she stayed down with them. They worked hard. They didn't spend any, they didn't spend frivolously or anything like that. And they kept it solid. And so that is a love story. Like, I would love to watch that. Like, it's a love story. It's a business story. It's a rags to riches story. And I want to tell y'all, you're never going to find better rags to riches story than your ancestors. I'm telling you, read The Negro in Business and learn how the hotelier, I wish I remember his name. He started out, Rakeem, with rags, fam. I'm talking about, imagine my shirt was like a quarter of what it is right now. No shoes, living in a shack. So that man owning a prestigious high-end hotel where all of the black elite are coming to visit and stay and give. And he, like, come on, in one lifetime. Right. In one lifetime, they were able to do this. You will never find more inspirational stories as far as the rags, the richest genre than Black American ancestors, man. I'm telling you.
That kind of reminds me of, I know you've seen it before, and obviously we both know how ridiculous it is, but I just kind of want you to speak on it. When we look at our ancestors who went through, the transatlantic slave trade and our ancestors who went through what they went through on this land, the stories that we've heard from our grandparents about who their grandparents were, if they knew them. But they have this thing now where people love to say, oh, y'all talk about slavery too much. That was way back in the past. When my grandmother, who is living, her grandparents were enslaved, right? And so I have a living link to that. For people that are really dismissive of the way we, highlight our ancestors and the plight that they went through, and how we never, allow ourselves to forget that, to not tell their stories. As you see, we're often told, hey, you guys need to get over that, right? You need to get over. No other group is, we don't have to name them, but no other group who has gone through any type of catastrophe like this is told to get over it. But Black folks are constantly told to get over their own oppression. Whenever you see things online or people on YouTube say, hey, those Black folks, they need to get over slavery, or everybody was a slave. That's one thing.
Everybody enslaved everybody. Yeah.
I've even seen Elon Musk say this, right? Like, and so, what are your thoughts when you see the disrespect of our ancestors in that way, as if it's something to get over?
Right. I'm of two minds when it comes to it. One, I want to directly respond to what you're saying, because it's some of the most disingenuous arguments that I've ever seen. And it's not even, because I know people get into the minutia about chattel versus indentured. I don't even get into any of that. I understand the differences, obviously, but that's not even the point. The point is that history is history. You can't rewrite history. The things that predate us, that got us to this point, one of those things, as far as even the history of this country, is slavery.
Right.
If not the biggest economic driver for this country
Absolutely.
was slave labor. You dig what I'm saying? And even if you look in contemporary sense, right? We got a bunch of Chinese children making our sneakers to this very day, right? So when we're talking about our own history and the things that we're going through, it's not so much that these people need to get over it. No, I think people just need to stop pathologizing our ancestors outside of what our ancestors actually thought, believed, and moved like. And so again, this goes back to the demoralization of the history, of our history being weaponized against us. Because when you're telling these babies, even if you're going to tell them about slavery, right, there is a level of understanding and a level of care that you do need to have. Like when I read slave narratives, the WPA, I forgot what it stands for, it's like the Writers Project Association or something like that, but during the 1930s and the 1940s, they interviewed a bunch of former slaves about their lives. And so I read the slave narratives. My grandmother is with the ancestors now, but her grandmother is also a slave. They come from Wilmington, North Carolina. On my father's side, they Gullah Geechee, right? So it's Carolinas all through my blood.
Yeah, same here.
And so yes, my grandmother told me about her grandmother. And she told me about the slavery and stuff like that, right? She's going to give me more intimate sentiments and stuff like that. So it's not going to be all peaches and cream, but it's definitely not going to be all destitute and oppression and all these other things, right? And so she gave us a level of agency. Maybe not so much autonomy because they're in bondage, right? But there still is levels of autonomy, right? And so what I believe is the way that slavery has been taught in this country has demoralized not only, Black Americans, but just Americans in general, to where they felt browbeaten. And I can understand that, right? Because I don't have nothing to do with slavery. I didn't enslave you. You're not enslaved, all this other stuff. But it's like if it was taught properly.
Yeah.
It doesn't demoralize anybody, but is actually speaking the facts about slavery, I think that would have bridged the gap. But it's often pathologized or talked about in a way where it's like, oh, again, you are a slave. I'm telling you about slavery, but this is you.
Yeah, it's not just an event; it's a relationship, right? And you are. And one thing that is important, and you're absolutely correct about how it's taught, and it's not taught to us in this way, where all of the rebellions that we had these settlers shook.
Yo, go ahead. I'm gonna let you go because this is one of my favorites. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And so those rebellions and threats of rebellions, some argue is what led up to the American Revolution, the War of 1776, is because of what the amount of fear that we instilled in the colonies. They would hear about what's happening in Jamaica. They would hear about what's happening in Barbados. They would see what was happening in the Carolinas. You mentioned St. Augustine. They saw what we go down to the Carolinas, get armed up with the Spanish, come back up, and start laying people down. Like we're not taught about. They make it not even just that. Even the ones
it's just labor and Negro spirituals. That's it.
Exactly. We're not ever taught about how we was putting in work. Like it wasn't an easy thing for them. You know what I'm saying? Like the Civil War had to happen. It was going to happen. You know, I
tell people all of the time that we freed ourselves.
Damn right,
I'm telling you,
freed ourselves.
Like
that was a slave rebellion.
Go ahead.
No, you're right. The Civil War was a slave rebellion. You know what I'm saying? That's how I frame it because there was no, again, like you mentioned, the way they teach it, they like to take the agency away from us. So it's often taught that the same person that enslaved you freed you.
Yes.
That's, again, as you know, that's some bull. You know what I'm saying? We freed ourselves.
And that's a fact. So when it comes down to that, right, this is what I love about it, is that people don't know that slave doctors were the most sought after doctors in the country, particularly in the South. Obviously, that's where the predominance of the slaves were. And white people would risk being killed because our ancestors would poison them. So
Yeah.
you are a slave owner, right? Not
Right.
you,
Yeah, I got you. I know
King,
what you said.
but you, the viewer, right? You're the
Yeah.
slave owner, right? And you know that the
Mhm.
best slave in town is I mean, excuse me, the best doctor in town is a slave. You're a slave more than likely, right? And so you go, your wife comes, brings them in the house, and being like, hey, I don't like calling him master, but your owner is sick or whatever. Checks him out, see his gums are black or whatever's going on, does an examination. And so he'll work with the woman in the kitchen, the black slave in the kitchen, and be like, yo, listen, just put 2 droplets of arsenic in his food every
Mm.
day. Just
Mm.
keep poisoning him slowly. Got to do
Mhm.
it slow, because if you put a 1 pinch more, they're gonna know he's been poisoned.
Right.
Do it slow. Let it happen gradually. And the women, I ain't gonna lie, the women would turn it up a notch. They would poison everybody, the kids, the wife, everybody. Like, we getting them out of here.
Right.
So white people, knowing this was a risk, would
Mhm.
still go for the slave doctor, to the point that they had to pass a law that said that no more slave doctors. You can't, because people were dropping like flies. Not only that, people love to try to fearmonger
Mhm.
you when it comes down to like police, right? Oh, they're just the descendants of the slave catchers. I want y'all to know the slave patrols were scared out of their mind of your
Mm.
ancestors. I'm trying to look it up here because I tweeted about it. But the slave patrol, the slave patrolman had his house, not gonna say bombed, but set on fire
Mm.
by young slaves. And they were like, yo, like, I'm not gonna risk life and limb to try to protect. Look, I'm not trying to catch them no more. Like they literally put their hands up. Like
Right.
Gabriel's rebellion, all of these different rebellions and stuff like that. Like, you got to understand, man. Like, our ancestors were never with it. Our ancestors were never these subservient,
Mhm.
feeble-minded people. These people were intentional about their day. And I
Yeah.
can tell y'all some crazy slave stories. I can tell y'all right now, there was this one black girl. She set fire to the mansion while everybody was in it. She set fire to the crop house where you would dry your tobacco and stuff like that, and stood there.
Mm.
Stood there. She ain't run or nothing. She got arrested. They hung her, obviously. Of
Right.
course, they killed her.
Right.
But she was like, nah, I'm burning this whole thing down tonight. Straight up. Like, that's
And
how our
you
ancestors.
gonna know who did it.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. And so,
Wow.
like, when it comes down to this stuff, like, one of my favorite episodes to date, Keem, I hope you watch it, is the Maroon communities.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen it, but I'm definitely gonna watch. 'Cause
Damn,
that's some fascinating history from
watch
South
it.
Carolina to Florida. Oh man, it's but
You
yeah, I'm
gotta
definitely gonna
watch it.
watch.
One
Okay.
of the illest things that I learned about the Maroon communities is that these communities, Keem, they were 100 yards away from the plantation. They
Mm.
went just a football length away. You could
Wow.
run over there, but they was in swamps. And the way that they was set up in the swamps, nobody was about to run in these swamps. It's got
Yeah.
alligators in the water. We're not getting in there. The ancestors lived in. Look up oak trees, y'all. Type in big oak tree, right?
Mhm.
I want you to know the ancestors lived inside of the oak tree.
Wow.
And I want to tell y'all this. They lived in
Wow.
there not only because y'all they talk about like the draft dodgers and all that other stuff.
Mhm.
None of those black men and women none of those black men fought in the Civil War. They were in the woods, they were in the swamps. And Civil War's over, freedom, slavery is over. And they was in the swamps the whole time, like, word.
Yeah.
And in the book that we cover on the stream, they break down how they were able to cook. They had they fashioned these long pipes underground and had the pipes go all the way this way so you couldn't smell what they were cooking. They were
Wow.
there was some
That's genius.
there was some they created these dugout houses
Mhm.
where they were quite literally living underground, overground. It was crazy. And so people will be walking over their homes. White people
Wow. And
walking
have
over their
no
homes.
idea that they're under there.
Oh my goodness, yo. So it's like when it
Wow.
comes down to like the intentionality of the
Yeah.
ancestors, and I want to get to your next question, but I do have to let y'all know this. I want y'all to know that all throughout these centuries, from the 16th century all the way up to the early 20th century, there were people going extinct, y'all. There were native tribes, indigenous people who were no longer here while your ancestors were surviving. Everything, as far as us being here, all the black people under the sound of my voice, you are here for a reason. Your ancestors could have died off and went extinct like so many others on this land alone, not counting all other continents. We, Black Americans, we are here for a reason. Our granny, my granny was one of 13. I'm pretty sure your granny is one of. They had all of those kids for a reason. All the things that our ancestors did were intentional. It was not by happenstance. So I want everybody to just keep that in mind when we're just having this conversation tonight. But go ahead, Keem.
No, that's real. One thing, as far as the name Hotep History, I was scrolling whenever I first got familiar with your channel, when it first hit my algorithm. I think that might have been the first thing I noticed. I was like, yeah, that's dope. And then so I started to watch, and I was like, oh man, this is cool, because not only is it informative, but it's like you're building a community with your channel. You know what I mean? Like the people that tune in and you chop it up with them and you build with them. How important is that part of, I guess what you do as far as educating our people, is not just giving them information, but, building community with them?
Absolutely. So I'm president of Hotep Nation. Hotep Nation was founded in 2014, 2015. And I've been president about 2014, and I've been president since 2015. I won by an election. So shout out to all my Hoteps out there, HJ, Uncle Hotep, Cannon, Strong Dad. I see y'all out there, man. I love y'all, Ghost Team. So we've been building this community for over a decade now. We have events every year. We have Hotep Con. We got the Grifties coming up in March.
I didn't know about any of this.
Yeah. Hotep Nation is a real thing. So we come together every year. We congregate. We all have our own different platforms and stuff like that. So when y'all start following me, y'all gonna get the pipeline right to HJ, right to Uncle Hotep, and y'all be able to see how we rock and how we talk and how we do our thing. So it's an entire community. And so I've been president of Hotep Nation, extremely proud of my position. People are proud of me and the way I preside over our community, our nation. And we have the way we call it, it's Hotep Nation, but it's inside Hotepistan. That's what we call it. And so when it comes down to that, we do have a reverence for Egypt. We do. I will never run from it. It comes from, like, me. I'm from New York and stuff like that. So 125th. I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up in Long Island, but going out to Harlem and seeing, going on 125th and hearing those guys and, be able to get those holistic teachings, Afrocentric teachings and stuff like that. It absolutely inspired me and informed me since young. And so we took the name, and I'll tell you how it was, how it even came to be. So during the 2014s and stuff like that, we spoke out against Black Lives Matter. We spoke out against D-Ray. We called him out for his fraud. Netta, Sean King, we call these people out very, very early, before Sean King even started, because all the
grifters that all of the grifters and took over from the real grassroots movement that was happening.
Rest in peace, Darren Seals, right? And so we had contact with Darren Seals before he died. He respected what we were doing and all of that, and he let us know directly, like, yo, they're out here co-opting our movement. And so Hotep was really early on that. And because you're early, people think you're wrong.
Yeah,
so
right.
What happened was Hotep became a pejorative over the early 2000s, to the point that Roy Wood Jr., he did a skit about Black Twitter on Comedy Central, and he put he had a bit about Hotep, or Hotep Twitter. And he ran in there. It was a barbershop, right? He was like, think of Black Twitter like a barbershop, da-da-da-da. And so, of course, he runs in there with a dashiki on and talking about, hold on, people don't like being called Hotep or whatever. So he runs in there with the dashiki. He's like, yo, we need to live black, buy black, smoke blacks. Like, what I'm saying, making fun of of the Hotep and stuff like that. So we've been mocked on the mainstream level, right? And so, of course, Hotep as dude and all that stuff. So they just calling us Hotep over and over again. Oh, that's Hotep. We don't mind hear that Hotep stuff. Da-da-da. So you like, you know what? Yeah, we are Hotep. Like, yeah. Because it's like, it's silly for Black people to be using an ancient African word as a pejorative.
Right.
That's silly.
Right.
So, yeah. So we just took the name, been flying it ever since. huge community, thousands of people. So you guys won't be alone. Okay. So it's not like just 4 dudes in a room. No, it's thousands of us out here. And we're building our community, gradually. And that's the reason why we like to shake the tree. So don't be surprised if you read something like, what? We doing that for a reason. We don't want the go along to get along people. We don't want the followers. We don't want to have happen to us that happened to Fred Hampton, getting those William O'Neill. We don't want no William O'Neills over here. Right. So we're going to say and do things. It's not going to be disrespectful, but it may offend you. It may jar your senses. It may wait, hold on. What? You know what I mean? So it's going to be one of those things, but understand we don't mean any harm. We just want to make sure that the people that do mean us harm are repelled. And so that's how we do it. But yeah, Hotep, I'm super proud of my nation. We got the Grifties coming up in March. And Grifties is basically an award show that we created for the grifters. You know what I'm saying? For all of the people. So we'll have like best musical grift. Or best, artist grift or whatever. Candace Owens has one. I think she has the most grifties. So we have fun. We have fun. Our last Hotep Con we had in Savannah, Georgia, we threw a cookout. Everybody came through. And we just had a good time fellowshipping, talking about it's not like, I know a lot of people think we just sitting down reading like Afrocentric encyclopedias. Like, no, we played ball. We had a barbecue. The ladies came out. We danced. You know what I'm saying? We had a good time. So, that's what we do over here at Hotep Nation. We just cultivating a community of like-minded people who are not going to be falling to any mainstream psyops and stuff like that. We can see past a lot of this stuff. People clutch their pearls at the Nick Fuenteses and stuff like that. We laugh at those guys. Man, come on. Yeah. He's not a threat for real. He's a kid. Right. Like, he's clearly just a lonely, you know what I'm saying? We see what they call overstand. A lot of stuff. So that's just how we approach different things. And it's not like we're all monolithic. I disagree with some of my Hoteps about stuff. It's just that our principles are never clashing. So that's just what it is. So that's shout out to my I say all the time, Hotep to my Hoteps.
No doubt, man. So let everybody know what as far as on the channel. What is it certain days that you drop?
Yes.
Okay.
So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Now, I want to let everybody know this because of like the way YouTube rules are. I don't like censorship. Okay. Yeah. I'm not saying grape. I'm not saying unalive. I'm not doing that stuff. I'm gonna use the words, okay? Especially when it comes down to history. Hard R's are all through the literature. I'm not gonna censor that stuff. So listen, my live streams are not monetized. If you want to support the channel, if you want to watch the full stream, you have to subscribe to the Patreon. Patreon.com/Hotep History. Okay, we have the $5 tier, we have the $15 tier, and we have the $35 tier. You can watch the live stream while I'm live, but once the live stream ends, you won't be able to watch the episode. I as far as the live streams that I kept up there, I kept up the first 65 episodes. I'm like, listen, work your way up or whatever. I gave y'all 65 free ones, but none of those are really monetized. And when I did monetize them, I had to take out the music because I like to play music. I like to play these videos. You'll play a TikTok on stream, and because the TikTok has music in it, now they got a copyright strike. So I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. But I do have scripted content that I put onto the YouTube. So trust and believe, the Patreon gets fed, YouTube gets fed. Don't get it twisted. But once the live stream is over on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6:30, once the stream is over, the only way to be able to watch that full stream again is if you subscribe to the Patreon. And that's simply because I do not like censoring myself. I'm not like one of those people that can't like not curse, because you see we haven't been doing that like that. Yeah. But if I'm reading a book and it has the hard R in it, I'm not going to say N-word. If I'm reading a book and it has, the R word in it, I'm not going to say grape. You know what I'm saying? I'm just not going to do that. And so I don't play algorithm games. I drop what I drop. You follow. If you don't, it's fine. But I'm just going to be me. So I think you guys would really love the Patreon. There's a bunch of exclusive content up there. Patreon.com/Hotep History. Again, Patreon.com/Hotep History. Subscribe right now. My phone is right here. I'm looking for the notifications.
No doubt. So the link for both will be in the description. Make sure y'all check my brother President Hotep Dubes out. It's been a great build and interview. I appreciate the conversation that we had, man. Wonderful stories about our ancestors. We definitely got to run this one back.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I know
We
there's
gotta
more
have a 5-hour joint.
yeah, there's more stories to tell, and so I appreciate that work that you're doing, man, because again, this is how we keep our ancestors alive and here with us. And so I salute to you for that. That work is important. So everybody, make sure you check him out on Patreon. It's a wealth of history, and I'm talking about these deep dives are like 5 hours long. You know what I mean? So like it's very much worth it. So everybody, make sure y'all check him out. Hotep Dubes, thank you for coming through, bro.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Hotep and Bill.
No doubt. Peace.